Hello, good afternoon, folks. We're just going to give it a minute or two just to give everyone a chance to join. So we'll chat with you real soon. Hi, Connor.
I know.
Okay, super. Well, look, 2 p.m. is just upon us, and we can see lots of folks are active now, so we will get stuck in. First of all, good afternoon and welcome. This is our very first UX Masterclass of the series, and it's so lovely to see some new and also familiar names joining us this afternoon. So a big shout out to some of our lovely clients and also some of our lovely folks from our UX Roundtables community joining us this afternoon. And for those of you that we haven't met before, you are very, very welcome. So today, as the slide outlines, we are going to think about the cost of bad design. And with that, the business case for design and how we measure how successful design is or not. So just before we get stuck into the detail, please allow us to introduce ourselves. My name is Melissa Boyle. My role at Logic and Magic, formerly Lo and Behold, is UX Director. And you can reach me on melissa.boyle@logicandmagic.agency after today's session if you want to geek out on any UX talk or indeed ask any questions. I'm also joined today by my colleague Connor, who I'll hand over to intro himself.
Hi everyone. As Mel said, I'm Connor and I'm a senior UX designer at Logic and Magic. If you're following this event on LinkedIn, YouTube, or in StreamYard, I'll strongly encourage you to interact, comment, and leave questions in the chat as we talk about this topic during the webinar, and also afterwards on social media on our website Insights. My email is connor.mccann@logicandmagic.agency. So yeah, feel free to reach out, and if you have any questions following on from today.
Super, thanks Connor. So our promise to you is that within the next 45 minutes, you will learn how to measure the impact of good design and how to spot the difference between good and bad design in a digital world. We will also do a few things following this masterclass. We will give you access to the video recording. We will also answer any questions that you might have. We have some time in at the end for Q&A, but if we don't get to them all, we promise to follow up and we will make that live on our blog. And very lastly, we are going to give a free UX audit away. So please stay tuned for details on that throughout the masterclass. So here's how the next 45 to 60 minutes is shaping up. We are going to start chatting about bad design and why bad design sucks, but we know that's not what you came for. So then we'll swiftly move into why good design pays before getting into the business case for user experience and why you should invest in or convince your organization to invest in user experience. We'll move out then of the theory and into some practical case studies on what good design looks like in practice. And then finally, we will have some time for questions and answers. So please do pop those into the chat as we go today, and we'll pick those up at the end. So over to you, Connor.
Thanks. Yeah, so we're going to start with this really obvious statement, which is that the bad design sucks. And I don't think anyone here would disagree with that. And it's very easy to spot in the physical world. So, you know, when we look at images like these coming up, it doesn't take too long for us to see that something's wrong here, and all we have to do is just imagine what it would actually be like to use this in the real world. Sometimes these designs don't necessarily look terrible. Aesthetically, they might look okay, but as soon as you would pick up a fork, this spoon, and use it for yourself, you would probably you wouldn't be parting with your money to buy it. So, as I said, things like this and bad design is very, very easy to see in the physical world. But yeah, as we move into looking at the digital world, sometimes it isn't so obvious. Yeah. And yeah, so good design pays. You'll all agree with that, and I'm going to predict we're all advocates for it. But it's much harder to spot good design in the digital world, especially. So I'm going to start by showing you some designs, and beginning with a company called ConvertKit. If you don't know the company, they are a software company that act as a marketing hub, helping creators send out emails. And I'm going to just show you a couple of their recent website updates. So yeah, here we have a homepage, and albeit this is an older version of the homepage than the current one, I think it's been updated since. But yes, a good example for what we're trying to talk about. And so this A option is one design, and then B is another design. So the thing about good design, as we're saying, is quite regularly that designs can be very similar, but they can have a big gap in terms of the performance that they deliver. And so you may look at this and think that there's not much difference in the performance or in the success in terms of conversion. But if we look at the differences side by side, option B actually has 20% more free trial starts simply by having those bullet points below the green call to action button. That kind of social proofing tells customers that there's 14-day free trial with no credit card required, and that they'll do any heavy lifting switching you over for free. Yeah, we look on at the slide robes example. So this homepage A shows some similar design patterns, and we see the use of those key bullet points at the top, just like ConvertKit. They make sure to tell customers they have 97% customer satisfaction rate. They have over 100,000 delighted customers, and that they have 20 showrooms across the UK and Ireland. So like getting key details like that straight to their customers. We can also then look at a variation in option B. These are obviously two very similar designs, and if you blink, you'll miss the differences. But essentially, just changing up the form of social proof here that they put on the homepage, this caused a difference in the overall conversion rate. Yet the option A gets 22% more brochure requests. And so that's just a good example showing you how similar designs can have such a difference and impact. Our final slide robes observation looks at two homepage variations. The only real big difference between these homepages is the middle, or the middle section, how it works under the image on the right, which breaks down in 3 easy steps how you actually order and buy a slide robe. You can see this version gets 18% more brochure requests. So yeah, just something as simple as maybe adding a bit more white space and 3 key sections like that, and just below the hero area of a site or a homepage can make such a big difference like that. So yeah, what I'm going to do now is ask for your opinion, everyone. And yeah, I encourage you to interact with us on this. So I'm going to show you a series of A and B versions of different websites. And all I need you to do is pop into the comments which of the 2 designs you think is going to get more conversions or perform better. So this first website is from Wall Monkeys. It's a company that sells decals online to customers. They offer a design yourself option or browsing from a wide selection of pre-made products. So if you can, just pop in A or B as your selection, and don't have, you can give rationale if you want, but don't feel like you have to, if just give an indication. So yeah, see a couple of answers coming in.
Yeah, B's definitely the front runner so far. B, lots of B's. Oh, a few A's creeping in there. B's, A's.
Yeah, there's a slight bit of variation maybe. So yeah, if we we'll have a look. Yeah, we'll have a look and see what we all said. And yeah, so B in fact got 27% more clicks to search. So yeah, a lot of people answered that correct. There's maybe a few different reasons for this, and having not been part of the research myself on it, I wouldn't want to speculate exactly why, but I'm going to predict that potentially users find the background image in B better, and maybe find the fact that they've moved the search bar to the center of the screen. That one call to action focuses users and gives them one less option. If you compare that to option or version A, which may seem daunting for customers clicking or filtering through what could be thousands of products offered. So yeah, thanks for all the answers there, and still see some coming in. So on to our next one. This site allows users to buy SimCity, and I'm going to ask you again to pop in the chat A or B, which one you think might get more conversions or perform better. So it's maybe, yeah, there's slight different variations in this one to consider. So again, yeah, just pop in your answer and then we can see what the consensus is.
I think this one's more of a mixed bag between A and B, more of a 50-50 split.
Yeah, thanks anyone that's popping in a bit of rationale. If you have an idea, if you think that there's a specific reason behind what you've given the answer for, thanks for that. Bringing people in with pre-order, but yeah, could be right, Laura. Yeah, so actually, A got 40% more clicks on this one to buy now. And again, without speculating too much on why, perhaps the fact that B displays another huge offer, which I think competes with the user's attention here. It could be too crowded and distracting, offering multiple options to complete buying a product, with mixed messaging repeated as well there. So yeah, thanks again for everyone just commenting there. We're on to our final example here, and it's including Humana. They offer medical health plans, and we've got, yes, you can see version A and B for you to consider again. So has any pop in again if you have any thoughts on which of these had the higher click-through rate?
Mostly A's coming through, I think. A few B's.
Yeah. See, yeah, clear CTA by Connor McAfee. Yeah, could be right. There's a bit of a mix in that one as well.
Yeah.
So thanks everyone for popping that in. Yeah, so version B has considerably higher results than version A, and you can see that one of the big differences is that they've taken away that large wall of text that explains all the benefits that comes with the plans for you. They have replaced it with a simple, let us help you determine the Humana plan that's best for your needs. And if you then look at the call to action, which I think, there was a few comments made direct call out in that. The call to action, simply changing the copy on your call to action to shop plans to get started now. The conversion increased by over 200%, and possibly, I would guess version B is not asking too much of the user straight away, reducing cognitive load, asking them to look at all the benefits, and whenever it's saying we're going to help you get started and give users confidence that they're going to help them throughout the process. So there's a considerable jump and difference in that one. So thanks again for all the interaction there with everyone. It was good to get some feedback as well. So if I could sum up that section just in a simple statement, it's that your users are the exclusive arbiters of commercial impact on your design, and you can't know that without them. So with those designs we looked at, you can see how similar some of them were. It's very hard to tell what's going to work best without actually looking at user behavior and finding out how they actually perform. So I'll pass back across to yourself now.
Good. Thanks, Connor. Great. So I will pick up here and we will begin to think about the business case for good design. And I hope what's beginning to resonate with you is that in the physical world, it's very, very easy to spot bad design. But in the digital world, bad design looks almost identical, if not sometimes even more aesthetically pleasing. And so if we assess design using the wrong criteria, or if we rely on our own opinion or preferences to assess how good design is or not, we can move away from that shift of the performance of design and drift into measuring design based on our own preferences or bias. So as we begin to examine this idea that often bad digital design looks very similar to good digital design, I want us to begin to think about some frameworks. Sorry, Connor, I think I'm getting a bit of feedback. I'm not sure if you could maybe try and turn off your mic and see. That's good. Super. Thank you. Super. So in Logic and Magic, there's a few different lenses that we look through whenever we begin to ask ourselves the questions around how good digital design is. We ask ourselves, is it useful? Is it usable? And is it used? So let's just dig into that a little bit more. When we ask ourselves the question around design and if it's useful, what we ask ourselves really is that if it helps a user complete a task or to get information that they need. And this begins to give us a framework to ask not just purely, do we like the look of design, but also does the design help users get stuff done? Moving on to usable, then we can begin to ask more questions of the design. Does this answer a user's question? Does it confuse them? And is it intuitive and straightforward? And the very last question that we often ask is if it's used. So do users prefer to use it to other alternatives? Now, sometimes that might be the competition, and sometimes that might be that they prefer to do something in a more manual or non-digital way. So this framework really allows us just to go a little bit deeper into whether or not a design is successful beyond just our own opinion. So when we think about the business case for good design, we begin to think about how it performs. And what that means is that we move away from focusing on what good design is and into what good design causes. And for us, that's our responsibility to understand what good design causes and not just what it is. So often when our clients commission us to do some work, they commission us for the following reasons or for the following design causes. They want to build their brand. They want to be able to serve their customers at a lower cost. They may want to ward off some competitive threat in their market. They want us to help them to sell more things to more people. They want to make their customers or users happier. And often they want their experience to be able to support their marketing initiatives as well. And this criteria gives us a framework to measure the impact of our design. And it's why every single project that we do starts with benchmarking, so we can understand what the as is state is before we get into designs or solutions. So I'm just going to jump out of some theory and into some real world examples. And hopefully this gives you a flavour on what design or what good digital design looks like in practice. So just before we get into some examples, let me just give you a little bit of rationale. These two folks are the Eisenberg brothers, and they were at the very start of conversion rate optimization when Connor and I were still in nappies. So back in the 1990s, conversion rate optimization was more known as shopping cart abandonment. And the Eisenberg brothers noticed that loads of users filled their baskets or their carts with products and then they left. And it was really odd to them because at the time there was no real world equivalent to that. It just wasn't the case that loads of people would fill their baskets or trolleys in the likes of Tesco's or Asda, or I think Stewart's was Tesco's name back then. And they just wouldn't get to the till and then walk out without taking or paying for their goods. So the brothers went after trying to work out this problem, and they began to think about the job that e-commerce websites had to do, and they mapped that out. So they mapped it out in 6 different stages. And the first job of an e-commerce site was to let users know that they were in the right place. And when they're confident that they're in the right place, the second job is then to get them from tens of thousands of products that they potentially could buy to the maybe 10 or 20 that they might be interested in. And the Eisenberg brothers called this part of the funnel selection. Then e-commerce site jobs is to make things easy to compare. So once users have compared and the price and stuff is right, then they get to the checkout and proceed. And what this framework really gives us is the option to understand whether design is good or not at every single stage throughout that journey. So here's the big reveal. The brothers discovered that 60% of the reasons that people abandoned their shopping trolley was absolutely nothing to do with the shopping trolley itself. And in fact, it was the experience before users got to the shopping trolley that influenced that behaviour. And at the time, designers and marketers were all looking in the wrong place. So there was a raft of reasons that, and still is, that users may exit at this stage, maybe because they aren't confident in the product or their selection. Maybe they've found it for a better price elsewhere, a whole load of reasons. But the reason we share this is because it gives us a clear structure to where we can assess the performance of design and where it stands up and where it falls down. So into one of our case studies. One of the pieces of work that we've done in years gone by and that I know the team are very proud of is some work that we did with Firefly at Lecky. And as you can see from the picture on screen, Firefly make a range of different products that are aimed at children and their parents and carers who have medical conditions which significantly impact their wee lives. So the product that you can see on screen here at the time was one of their most popular products. And what it basically did, its name is the Upsy. And what it does is it allows a child to be strapped to the front of their parents' or carers' legs. And so for children with conditions like cerebral palsy, it means that the child can have the sensation of walking by being part of their parents' legs and their muscular movements. And this Upsy was co-designed by the Lecky design team and a mother of a child with cerebral palsy who was based in Israel. So she came up with the original concept, and between them, Lecky and this parent co-designed the Upsy, which is life-changing for the kids that used it. Now, that's a little bit of background to Firefly and the Upsy. And when Firefly came to us, one of the things they commissioned us to do was to make sure their conversion rate was as high as it possibly could be. And they wanted to understand better the difference between user motivations in the United States versus user motivations in the United Kingdom. So as you can imagine, we went after that insight in a number of ways. And one of the very first things that we did was we got after the data. So to help us understand where the design was doing good and where there was room for improvement, we looked into the funnel. And similar to the Eisenberg brothers, we started to break that down. And that meant that we could assess that from there how we might design our primary research to see what areas people were abandoning the cart or the experience. So that helped us understand the questions that we needed to ask of parents and carers in this environment. So through data-driven research and through speaking to parents, some of the key things that we unearthed was the fact that this was a medical purchase and therefore people needed medical assurance about the quality of the product. It was also an emotional purchase because people were interested in the lifestyle elements of it and the impact that it would have on their family life. It was a practical purchase, so parents and carers had specific questions about how to use this product in the real world and to get the most of it, and also that it was a costly purchase. And one of the key findings for us that we unearthed was that in the States, parents and carers of children in this situation are very used to paying for a lot of their medical care, and they were much more price sensitive than they were in the UK, where parents are used to getting a lot of that care or products free of charge. And the final thing was that it was an international purchase for those in the States. And so we needed to work really hard in our design and language to cross that gap of the Atlantic, if you'd like. And so what we're trying to get at here within this framework is what we were able to discover user motivations, which would allow us to better the design against the things that we knew mattered to our users or those parents or carers of children. One of the kind of quick wins that we came across was site speed, and we understood that we needed to work harder to make the site faster, particularly in North America, and we got some good hosting solutions in place for that. We also did some usability tests, and I'll just share one of those with you now, which we carried out, and it begins to flush out some of the localization issues that we learned.
I don't know if I would use the word clever team. I feel like the use of that word implies like this whole company is like from like the UK, you know, and obviously like like it being British is great. It's just that I don't think that word is like used in this sense. It just kind of makes you pause to see this like first of all that this isn't even from the US. Obviously, when I see the price here and it says $4.99 in dollars, I assume the company's from the US. I think sometimes they're kind of like odd language in a sense tips you off, but I definitely am surprised that it took me a while to EU or like UK or US or whatever, and actually list them out from Britain. It says washed at 40 degrees Celsius.
I would go at the bottom because this is usually where it is. Okay. And say like, this usually typically like just like that's like a customer service sort of help area, and so that's the first place I would look. I would look in the delivery blurb. I would assume that there's going to be a separate section for, depending on whether it's US or not. Or maybe not. Yeah, well, being that it's in the U.S., is it so? There's no there's no tax, or do they have an American, a U.S. Distribution center? So I guess I can look at distributor information. I guess I would want to see that, because to me it's like, okay, if it's a British company, a UK company in UK, then does that free shipping apply to the US too? I wouldn't necessarily assume that unless I actually saw it.
Yeah. No, it says returns policy. I'm surprised they're using the word unsuitable goods, as that's not something you usually see in terms of products in the US at least. So it says US customers, unsuitable goods. Okay, so here's your information. There aren't any kind of like spaces, I think.
Well, being American that doesn't buy from overseas that much, I'd want to know, so at VAT, I'm assuming that means this is the price without the VAT. Is there a place to find out the estimated VAT? Or I guess I don't know what expat means. Okay, so because I'm on a US site, now I realize, oh, this is all going to be then, now it seems a little more clear to me. Okay, so that free shipping probably is to the US as well, includes county. It should be state for, so I guess, so town or city. I don't know if this is like a UK thing, because we have states here. So, like I would choose Massachusetts, but that would be my state, not my county. My county would. Okay, so again, so here with telephone, I'm like, okay, so normally, you know, for a US company, I would just put the area code and then the 7-digit number. You know, would I need the country code, or you know what I mean? Like, will they figure that out once I put in my country billing address?
Postcode, huh? Guess that's what they say instead of zip code. Or like, am I supposed to put 001 or something because my telephone number is in America? I wonder if that's a thing they could have in small print or something. I don't know. So billing address.
So, just in terms of those usability clips, I guess there was lots and lots of conclusions that we drew from them. The things that we learned through that exercise, I guess, and going back to that idea that often good design looks exactly like bad design, or they're almost indistinguishable to the user's eyes. Because without speaking to those customers, we couldn't have told you that expressing something in Fahrenheit rather than Celsius was a better design decision for our US customers. We might not have been able to tell you that putting +44 on a telephone number was bad design, but when we spoke to users in the US, we knew it was. And again, I couldn't have told you that the word clever was a poor design choice than the word smart. But again, when we spoke to users, we found out it was. And so again, just going back to that idea that some bad design choices look absolutely identical to good design. And I suppose that the crux of all this is that we must speak to our users, because it's them where we will find out exactly what those little small differences are that make the world of change to their experience, and in turn the commercial impact on our conversion rate. So what all this allowed us to do was make a series of recommendations for Firefly. There were some long-term and short-term recommendations, and you'll see this is how they started to play out. One of the main recommendations was to enable users to pay for their product over a period of time rather than upfront in the States, because they were more price conscious. This just gives a little bit of a flavour of some of those design outputs. And the reason that we share all of these kind of very small and what may seem like very obvious marginal gains now is because when you begin to put them together, what we found and what you will find is that when you ask the right questions of the right users, they will give you the clues that you need to make the changes that are small, but together have a very, very significant impact. So we carried this work out a number of years ago. It was on the run up to Black Friday. And as you'll see on screen here, the conversion rate went from 0.88 in previous Black Fridays, and the folks at Firefly seen an increase on a 5% conversion impact, which was absolutely massive for them. So I hope that what you'll take away from this case study is that we as designers and digital professionals very often don't always have all the tools or answers at our own disposal to discern the difference between good or bad design. And it's only our users who can tell us that, because they are the ones who ultimately determine if it is good or bad. Another real quick example comes from PowerNI. For those of you who aren't familiar with them, PowerNI have been a household name for over 90 years in Northern Ireland. They are now the largest electricity supplier in the region, and they energise over 500,000 homes and businesses. And they came to us last year to achieve 3 things. They wanted to make their customers happier through better experiences online. they wanted to lower the cost to serve new customers. And in their world, that means getting more customers through the switching process online than picking up the phone. And lastly, they wanted to build their brand and to be seen as a leader in serving their communities and customers with additional needs as well. So when they came to us, they had already identified that their design wasn't good enough, particularly for their users with visual and cognitive needs. And going back to that useful, usable, and used framework, they knew that because they worked closely with their residential customers and the community, and they observed that tasks like topping up a keypad meter or submitting meter readings or switching provider wasn't as straightforward for this group of users as what they may have thought. Just one last thing to note is that it's estimated that over 20% of the Northern Irish population have a physical or mental impairment, which quite obviously has substantial effects on a person's ability to carry out day-to-day activities, like topping up their keypad meter or making choices around changing their electricity supplier. So not only did Power and I know that it was the right thing to do ethically to adapt their design to support those users, but also because it made good commercial sense as well, because there was 20% of the market that that they weren't serving. So we employed a various set of tasks to really help get under the hood of what was working and what wasn't. We did some workshops with customer and support staff to understand some of those key queries that were coming across time and time again, and some of the reasons for some of those calls and people not being able to fulfill their journey online. We did some benchmarking, again, looking at their funnels to understand where they were stacking up at the minute. And we had a look at some data points through analytics, I guess, to get an understanding of what was happening on these digital experiences. And when I say digital experiences, I mean their website and their customer app. We also did a bit of an accessibility audit as well. And all these things resulted in us putting together a learning plan to get after some of the questions and insight that we needed to help fuel our primary research, which came in the form of a survey and some user testing, which ultimately ended with some recommendations on how they could improve their design. So there was lots and lots of learnings that we came away with. Some of the big reasons for barriers or delays to conversion, particularly with those who had visual impairments, was color contrast. So throughout the website, and in particular in this case, one of the key actions for users to switch to Power and I as their electricity supplier was just not visible to those who had visual impairments. So quite obviously our recommendation was to make that color contrast better. For customers who had to submit keypad readings, numbers were read out incorrectly by screen readers. So again, those with visual impairments who relied on screen readers couldn't do this task. And an example of this, the KPRN code, as opposed to reading out the numbers individually, like 982690, it read it out as one big long number. Now, I'm not going to attempt to say that number, but for instance, it was something like 9,826,000 and so on. You get the gist. And another one was that the form labels were missing for screen readers. So to those visually able were able to get through forms and be able to start the process of switching no problem. For those that relied on assistive technology like screen readers, they couldn't decipher what these forms were asking of them, and therefore they weren't able to begin that switching process. So going back to that idea of moving away from what good design is and what good design causes, some of these small changes to the website and helping support those users with additional needs, Power and I seen lots of good results. So year on year, they seen a 33% increase in the change of supplier online completion forms. We can only guess as a result from better semantics in the likes of the forms that they seen this 9% increase in organic search traffic, which I must mention wasn't part of the objectives. It was a nice Brucey bonus. And overall, Power and I now own 57% of the Northern Irish market, and they power just over 500,000 homes and businesses. So while those things might look like very small remedial improvements, that they seen lots of great commercial impact. So just as we close things off, let me just summarize where we've got to. So I suppose when we think about good design versus bad design, we must think about commercial criteria. And as I mentioned, at lo and behold, we really find that used, useful, and usable model really, really helpful to understand if a product or digital experience is useful to the people using it. So I'll just go back to used, i.e. it's a preferable method to alternatives. Useful, users get stuff done quickly, and usable, it is intuitive and simple. Number two, your users know best. It doesn't really matter what you think about your design because you are not the one that has to use it. The people who will make or break the commercial success of your design are your users. Number three, as we illustrated whenever we were talking about the Eisenberg brothers, there is great power in deconstruction, because what that allows you to do is to get specific about the job that different pages and different elements of your flow or journey need to do. Number four, distrust opinion, and in particular, please distrust your gut. I know the A/B tests at the start of the call, which Connor run, were very lighthearted and just a kind of to get a good bit of interactivity. But they do illustrate that it is very difficult to know which designs perform better than others. So in the absence of data, please distrust your opinion and go after insight. And then the final thing to share, as we did on the Lecky example, is to test. And if we get our process right, then our view is that there is a direct relationship between the quality of insight and design performance. So as we conclude our thoughts on the cost of bad design, again, going back to that idea that often bad digital design looks indistinguishable, even to designers and digital professionals, as it does to good design. And the way that we can get around that is to engage with, understand, and listen to our users. So that was a whole lot of chat from me. Connor, I think I'm going to hand over to your good self for Q&A.
Yes, thanks, Mel. Yeah, there's no such thing as a stupid question, so we've reached this Q&A. And yeah, thanks everyone who has sent us a question across LinkedIn, YouTube, and StreamYard. At this stage, yeah, if you have any, pop them in there, and we will try our best to go through them. I have a question to kick us off. It's from Alice. So Connor, this is directed to me. So Connor spoke about bad design in the digital world. What are the key things you look for in the digital world or design that make it good or bad? Thanks for that question. And yeah, I suppose in Logic and Magic, yeah, we're big fans of the Nielsen Norman Group, who we see as UX leaders in the industry. Jakob Nielsen created 10 usability heuristics back in the 90s, which we use as our gold standards, and they're as relevant today as they were almost 30 years ago. We use these usability heuristics and perform expert analysis or heuristic reviews on products and services and then these rate the overall performance and how that performs. So this then helps us determine if design in the digital world is in this case good or bad. So something as simple as that, definitely we rely heavily and lean heavily on. So if you use these usability heuristics or are aware of them, you'll appreciate what I mean. If not, I would definitely recommend those as a resource if after today. Thanks for that question. And I see another one there from Jim. So I think this one you'll be able to answer this one, Mel. For a small product team, what tools would you recommend to use data analytics to analyze research insights?
Thanks, Connor. Good question. I suppose for us, and maybe for you in a small product team, where resource might be tight and you might not have a lot of access to users, then our first base would definitely be to use the likes of Google Analytics. Now, it's not going to give you the full picture, but it will certainly give you some clues as to what is happening on your product or your website. To add another layer to that, we often use Hotjar, and it basically visualizes through heat maps and video recordings how users interact with products or digital designs. And again, it won't give you all of the whys in terms of why people do things, but it will give you a bit more insight into what is happening and allow you to make some hypothesis as to why it might be happening, because you can watch some of those insights in real time. So I suppose they would be our two big tools to get after data insights, and often they would help us to begin to form our learning plans whenever we get a chance to get in front of users, either through the likes of surveys, usability tests, A/B tests, and so on. So I hope that was helpful.
Thanks, Mel. Yeah, that I see a question come in there from Bridget. That's Hotjar. Is the tool that was mentioned? So yeah, I see another question from Kate. Can you measure the impact bad design has on customers' perception of your digital product or service? And yeah, I'd be happy enough to answer that one. And the answer, and I suppose yes is the answer. You can measure that impact. A combination of some of the methods and methodologies that Mel covered during the case studies. A combination of quantitative data, qualitative insights can help you access or assess the impact of bad design on customers' perception and make informed decisions to improve their user experience. Things like usability testing, user feedback, benchmarking metrics, and things like conversion or task success rates, something that we covered in those like lighthearted A/B success rates. They can all be utilized to help measure the impact good and bad design has on customers' perception of a digital product or service. So I see a couple of questions in the chat or in our comment section. So I'll maybe bring one up, Mel, and then if you wanted to take that. So
Sure.
Go ahead.
No problem. So I see one in there just from Laura on how we test with users using screen readers. Good question, Laura. And I think the simple answer to that is that we run usability tests with them, and we observe how they use the product or service using the tools that they are very used to. So they're often, we would do a bit of an expert review from an accessibility lens, and we will employ the likes of screen readers and tabbed functionality and try and put ourselves in the shoes of those users using it. but ultimately there is nothing like seeing how they actually use it, because what we often find is they have their own little quirks and ways of working with different assistive technology. And I guess we've also found as well, in terms of building panels of people up who have additional needs or requirements for other assistive technology to help them use the web or digital products, is that they're often very, very open to helping, and they like the idea of companies or organizations taking their requirements into consideration. So yeah, and we've formed a few connections with different charities and stuff to help us get access to those people. But definitely the best way is to sit down with those users and watch them in their natural environment using these products or services. So I hope that's helpful. I'm just going to pick up another one. John, you asked what the link between logic and magic and lo and behold is. And I know that I've slipped up a few times on this. So logic and magic is pretty much is lo and behold. So we rebranded as of last week, and we're still getting into still fighting our rhythm, making sure we're saying the right name. So still the same people, same services, doing the same thing. So hopefully that adds some clarity, and apologies if I flitted between the two names throughout.
Thanks for covering those two, Mel. I suppose we could pick up another comment from here if you want. It's to do with is it possible to have good UX design but with bad UX writing? And I suppose possibly that the last A/B test that we looked at with I think it was call to action button had been reworked. Just something as subtle as that, you could maybe a good example to suppose maybe look back on or refer to. You can see how the conversion rate was increased so much, and not necessarily just by the copywriting or the UX writing on that, but that's just one example of how something like that can help the bigger picture and improve that piece. But I'm not sure if you want to add anything more to that now.
I might just add in that it is absolutely possible to have good, let's say, best practice designs with really bad UX writing. And I suppose content for us is one of the most important things when we get to design. And we always start with content and good UX writing and understanding the mental models of users to understand how we talk to them and how we guide them along journeys. So to answer your question, yes, it is absolutely possible to have a brilliant design, as in that it follows lots of best practice principles, but that the copy or the UX writing doesn't support users on their journey. And just going back really briefly to that Firefly example, lots of the design elements didn't change as such. It was the content that changed to allow a more kind of localized approach to take into consideration the US audience. So changing Fahrenheit to Celsius, zip or postcode to zip code, and so on. So definitely good UX writing has a big part to play in the success.
Thanks, Mel. Yes, and I suppose on that note, thanks everyone for your questions. We know there are some we didn't get to answer on our webinar, but we encourage you again to keep the conversation going online, and we'll answer as many outstanding questions on our Insight article that will be posted after today on our website at logicandmagic.agency. So I'll hand it back to yourself now.
Super. Thank you, Connor. And thank you everyone for coming along and sharing your afternoon with us. And thank you to all of you that engaged as well. Definitely makes it a bit easier. So there is a few things that are going to happen after the masterclass. We are going to share this video recording with you. So if you found any of the content useful for colleagues or friends, please do share that with them. We also promised you a free UX audit at the top of the call. That is still very much up for grabs. So you will get an email into your inbox, I believe, in the next 24 hours. Within that email, there's a little link, and the first person to respond to that will be the winner of our free UX audit. So if you're a Who Wants to Be a Millionaire fan, that is fastest finger first. So good luck, folks, and we look forward to working with the winner on that. We also have a series of these masterclass webinars coming up that cover everything from video to social media marketing. So please do follow our social media pages for more information on those. You can also sign up to our newsletter to be reminded of those webinars, and the little QR code that you see on screen now will take you to our website. If you just scroll to the bottom of that, you'll be able to sign up to our newsletter. So I think that is all with my shameless plugs. Thank you for indulging. And yeah, in the meantime, folks, have a really brilliant afternoon, and thank you so much for your time. Take care. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone. See you soon.
Bye.